seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the bus and they left the bus in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, here we go. It's the Tuesday ticket. It's all changed on the bus, Jonathan. We could never get consistent enough with the Mondays. I've started to do them at lunch again, and now it looks like we're on a Tuesday night most of the time. I know you want to watch plastic football and that Champions League competition you enjoy, so we'll probably do the odd Monday night still as well. But for the foreseeable, it will be on Tuesdays as and when there is no football clashing. It is time, Jonathan, to look back at the weekend, look ahead to next weekend, talk about all the other stories going on in and around Celtic, not just Celtic related, because there's always a noise going on, Jonathan, across the city that tends to pique interest. So we'll be talking about all that. Jeremy Frimpong, is he going to be Celtic's highest revenue for a player sold this summer? And it's not even us selling him. We'll be talking about, Ange will be the one linked with leaving, but it was actually a chairman of our rivals that left this week. Is there a story there? If there is, will anyone talk about it in the week leading up to a title clincher potentially for Celtic? We doubt it. And much, much more to come. All that good stuff, though, means hit subscribe. If you've not hit subscribe, we jumped up a good few over the weekend, Jonathan. So just goes to show you a wee bit of banter. And people quite enjoy that sometimes. Obviously, if you want to become a voice member, like Craig A, Brown Warrior, Alan Woods, Kevin 14, who else? Les Watts, Paul Dyatt, Patrick McLaughlin, Phil McGinley, Scott Cam. There's so many now, Jonathan. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, all you have to do is select the wee money button, and it's $1.99 a month. It is just you supporting the channel. It is completely optional. Our content remains completely free of charge, as if we would charge you to watch us pay our dates, whether it be a Monday, a Tuesday, any day that ends with a Y. Now, if you also want to go to piesports.com and get a wee tasty discount, Jonathan, you can get 12.5% off. And it is just putting in bus 1888 as your voucher code, and that offer will apply you a 12.5% discount from them. Bhoycie Bus shirts, they have all been ordered, paid for now. Thank you to everyone who bought one. We did all right with them, but we did surprisingly well, and I was glad to make sure that we gave it as long as we could before submitting the order, I would say. So Nobody can cry if they've not got one now, but it'll be brilliant to see once they arrive. It should be just over 4 weeks till everyone gets there, so I'm looking forward to that. But Jonathan, opening gambits aren't really my thing. Take it away.
Yes, Russell, well, it has been a bit of a week of the lockouts, is what I've called the past 7 days in the Scottish footballing climate. Celtic were very nearly locked out against Ross County. It looked as if they weren't going to be able to find a way to goal until they were awarded that penalty, which I think nobody's seen coming until the VAR cameras intervened and showed us it was quite clearly a penalty. You know, we've seen other lockouts this week as well. You know, Rangers, they've been a bit slow on posting the old accounts. The public have been locked out of seeing what is beneath the hood at Ibrox, and it does appear as if there is some sort of financial difficulties across the city. Lockouts continue throughout this week, as we will see no Rangers fans at Celtic Park, as they are indeed locked out of the stadium. But I tell you what, the biggest lockout is going to be this week, and it is the moment when Celtic play Rangers at the weekend, and Mickey Beale, who has a chink of light in the door in terms of the title race, is about to have that firmly shut in his face, as Rangers are locked out of winning the Scottish Premiership title, because come the weekend, the party begins.
Jonathan, what can I say, mate? That is just a vibe, that, man. I love it, and it is very much a case now, Jonathan, where I think we're entering one of my favourite territories of the season. Now, I don't mean the timing of the season, but whenever it's this week, I just keep looking up at the clock, Jonathan, and saying tick-tock, because that is where we are at right now. You can't run, you can't hide. Saturday is coming. I'm beginning to get vibes like, and I don't think they'll allow it again. But do you remember when we were the season, Lennon's second full season, and they came in, it all sort of came out that they were fucked, right? They absolutely battered them 3-0. Commons ironically scored his first goal of the season that day. I think it was around this sort of time of year.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll allow this narrative to play out in its entirety or in its fullness until this weekend is done, because they don't want to set themselves up for that fall. But we will talk about that in a wee bit, because I do think it will be, funnily enough, Jonathan, when we're looking at departures, like, you know, Park leaving the club, you know, after the day after £1.93 million is randomly raised. By the way, me and Steve did a show yesterday afternoon saying we think there's a fucking shitstorm coming. You could just feel something. By the end of that night, they'd used more equity confetti to pay the wages. By the next day, the chairman's effed off. But yeah, I just get the feeling we'll be talking about Ange Postecoglou departing all week. Not on the bus, but I think that'll be where the media goes. I think that'll be the line they want to go down. They'll want to talk all about Ange Postecoglou potentially joining Leicester City, maybe even Chelsea, who knows. But I definitely think they would rather focus on that. You are getting a lot of love in the chat, Jonathan, just so you know as well. It was a good start. Ian McIntosh, David McMurray, mate, absolutely loving it. Ali says you are on fire, mate. Send it on. Absolutely brilliant. That was class.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I did one. I didn't do one last week, so I've had a wee bit of time, international break. It's been coming together in all of 30 seconds. So I jotted that down during the introduction, but I'm glad it's went down well. No, good thinking.
Yeah, it was good, mate. That was brilliant. It was just the right hype job, Jonathan. These weeks take up such a, you know, when it's the game, when it's on the horizon like this, you kind of just become consumed of it 4 or 5 days before, don't you? Everything does change a bit, and I know people want to say, we'd just rather they were dead, but whilst they're still cutting about in their hour wee plaything, then I think these weeks always tend to just, I don't know, the mood shifts a wee bit, you know, you're a wee bit more switched on and what's going on here, and every wee, you know, aspect of our team, our starting lineup, whilst we try and divulge and dissect it all each week, I think this one, you just do it a wee bit more, and it could be the week we win the league, if we've not already, but this would be the the final nail in the coffin, as it were. I don't know what coffin I'm referring to at this moment in time. It could just be Ange coffin. You never know. But we'll get into all that. Before that, I was saying there when I was trying to sort of list a couple of the points we were going to talk about, Frimpong being heavily linked again today with multi-million-pound moves. Now, I'm not going to say I know who it is he's going to be going to. I think there'll be a few clubs interested, judging by when you read between the lines. And I think that could be now, obviously, something Leverkusen are maybe trying to push, get there. That all suits us. Could we have, it must be the first time in our history, a player move that we've not sold that brings us in our highest transfer fee of that window? Is that what we're looking at? I was watching a wee bit of the old PLZ soccer. I'm not the biggest fan of it, to be honest with you. But Peter Martin was on it. I know you used to love him as a commentator. He annoys me as a host, but he's okay. He's okay. But he was saying he thinks, definitely was listening to him, right? Because I went, wow, he seems to think Frimpong could be a 30% sell-on clause that Celtic installed in that. Now, if we're looking at the money of the Frimpong, I think we could say with a bit of confidence now, he's going to be upwards of £40 million to his next club.
Yep.
30% of that is £12 million. Now, that's us not with any great knowledge as to what clubs will buy, but if they're starting the bidding war 2 months before the transfer window opens, it would suggest there's a fair bit of interest. 30% would be astounding. Kaiser thinks it's 20. I'll be honest, I would have presumed it was around 15, 20. But Peter Martin kind of does a show where he's not going to just throw, nonsense about it, I wouldn't have thought. And he does seem like he definitely is, quite Celtic-minded. So I wonder if he is going to be, if we've got something like 30%, will he be our, highest revenued asset of the summer that doesn't actually leave Celtic?
I wonder if that would end up becoming Celtic's record transfer deal in a strange sort of way, even though he's left Bayer Leverkusen. That'll be an interesting one for the Styles Phil. I'll know the answer to that. We'll ask Phil when
Zabby,
he comes
what
on.
would take him up to what? If he was going up to
if he went for, say, £100 million, which obviously sounds a bit pie in the sky, that's probably a bit too much, but that would obviously dwarf the Tierney deal if it was a 30% sell-on. I would be very surprised if he goes for quite as much as that. But, well, we can talk figures. One good thing about Frimpong for me is that the club that looks interested is a club that like to spend quite a bit of money and quite often overpay for their players, and that is Manchester United as the one that I've been seeing him linked with. And, if they can spend £80 million on donkeys like Harry Maguire, you just never know how much they might be willing to fork out, particularly because I think Frimpong is one that captures the imagination. He's still a fairly young player, plenty of mileage left in his career. I think he's somebody that will capture the imagination of a whole host of clubs. And could do a job for quite some time, which is only going to increase his value. He's obviously doing well, in one of the top 5 leagues in Europe, in the Bundesliga. So, I think when you're looking at that as well, that obviously adds stock to him. I think it's one of those ones. I think when he left Celtic, Russell, I don't think anyone would have really expected Frimpong to necessarily have been going for the crazy sort of money. If you were looking back at it and looking at the sell-on clauses we've had over the last 5-10 years, if it was going to be anyone, you'd have always thought probably it was going to be Musa that was going to be the one who brings you in the most on his sell on. It probably came a bit from left field. Jeremy Frimpong bringing in that sort of cash, and I think it's there for Celtic to make a tidy profit on him, and it's just more cash coming into the club, which is going to be cash rich. Come the summer, because as far as I'm concerned, we are going to win on Saturday. That will put an end to the league. I said at the top of the show, we'll be slamming the door on Michael Beale, and I firmly believe that will be the case in terms of the league title race. His chase will be over come Saturday evening. So I'm looking at this and thinking, if we've got the Champions League money already in there, plus potentially, another, let's say it ends up being another 10, 15 million pounds on top of that for a player that we never even, had, just moving to another club, then that's such a monumental bonus there. There's going to be an absolute heap to spend in the summer. And it would be interesting to kind of see what sort of budget Postecoglou then ends up with if all of this was to materialise and, Celtic were to be in this position where it's got the Champions League money on one hand, then an extra, say 15 million, for example, they didn't expect to have. How much of that then gets reinvested in the squad? It's a dead exciting time, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's interesting. I think my mouse, 2 seconds. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the mic connection seems to have went really loose recently. I don't know why. I'll get that looked into. I think there's a lot of exciting things about this, and it does again show you when you're selling players, the headline fee can make up so much of it, but then it's good business, particularly when you're selling the younger players. Like Frimpong was 22 when we sold him, I think.
Yeah.
I would say, you've got to make sure you've covered your bases here. So I think, that sell-on clause at 30% really did raise my eyebrows. I think that's why I'm talking about it more tonight, because I thought, all right, okay, now we are playing here. Kevin 14's came in, and he's actually a wee bit more savvy than me. I was being naive and saying 40 million, if he sold for that, it'd be 12. But he's right, he's taken away then the profit side of it. So obviously that would be 8.4, because that would be a third of the 28 million profit that they made on it. So you would get 30% of the profit. I take that on the chin, Kevin, and thanks for putting that in the comments, because I wouldn't have thought in that. The Kieran Tierney stories are there as well, remember. And this guy is going to, I think he will have 20% minimum as a selling on fee. Now we're giving Frimpong had 30, because Tierney was one of those guys that Celtic actually kind of, they dug in a wee bit on. I felt the Frimpong one, we batted our eyelids too quickly when I seen the £11 million or the £12 million fee. I thought, we just seem to have jumped at the first offer. And the Tierney one, though, we dug our heels in. Don't know if you remember, Arsenal wanted to do it over 3 years, all that, and we wanted the 25 million up front.
Yeah.
But notwithstanding that, I also believe that with that, Celtic would have inserted a sell-on clause, because we've done it so often. Dembele did have one, as you rightfully point out. Sadly, we're not going to get anything of that because he will leave on a Bosman. But the principles there that you would think Celtic will definitely have some sort of sell-on fee. Imagine that, 2 guys that were not selling this summer, bringing in the vast bulk of our transfer revenue in this next window upcoming. That's really clever by the club, to be fair. And I know it's not reinventing the wheel, putting a sell-on clause, but sticking up for Celtic on this occasion, which I rarely do when it comes to transfer activity, I think we need to also say it can be harder when the big clubs are coming to our backwater of the league. That's how they view it. They think they can lowball the offers, and if Celtic have been savvy enough to think, they think they've got a good deal here, but we're forecasting that these guys are then going to move on to another level at some point, and we'll get a wee bit more. It is exciting. Does it shine a torch? This is the sort of phrase I keep using, on the club though this summer, that sometimes they'll feel a wee bit almost exposed now to the riches that they're going to have. I know 112 million turnover estimates doesn't mean 112 million in the bank. What we can though surmise from that is, whilst the wage structure is as limited as what it is, and it does seem to be capped, and it doesn't seem to have been broken at all in the last, 5 to 10 years, it would lead you to think that whilst that turnover's rocketed, the profit that we'll make will also have. Bear in mind, we already had cash sitting of around 30-40 million. Now 2 guys we sold, 2 fullbacks ironically, could be bringing in between them another 15 million upwards this summer. It does sound almost like this is all too good to be true. There's got to be a catch somewhere, mate.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those ones where I guess if you were to flip it and look at the other side of it is, the money, if we are to get that sort of deal over the line, and, Frimpong was to move, Tierney was to move, Celtic do end up taking, say, 15 to 20 million for the 2 of them on sell-on clauses plus their Champions League income. It's going to be natural then for the fans to start asking questions to make sure that money is getting reinvested in the squad, and then it'll be a moment in time that we're going to look back on with Celtic and see this is a moment where we went for the throat to try and advance ourselves as a football club whilst the cash is rich, or is this going to be one of those moments where we put the money and just stick it in the bank in case we end up having another rainy day and we need that money for something else because the amount is going to be there. And I think, if Celtic don't spend probably a lot more than they have been in recent windows. Certainly, I think they might go for one marquee player if, Tierney and Frimpong were to go, at least. And go for somebody of, the £10 million mark, which is a lot of money.
Where do you stand on that? Because I think I've seen, and I'm basing this on, we're on our 410th Bhoycie Bus episode tonight, Jonathan. I don't know if you know that. 410th video we've done, yeah. And that's only been in, 15 months, 16 months. So I would like to say I'm pretty well versed in reading the comments, because I read every single live comment as they come in. And I would say there's been a mix. I'm not saying everyone, but I've seen a lot of comments, pal, that suggest that a marquee signing could upset the apple cart. A marquee signing could be then out with the wage structure currently being employed. Could that see jealousy from other players, etc.? But that has to evolve as well. What we spend has to evolve as the club. You can't have it your cake and eat it. You can't just keep watching revenue streams go way up and up, summer after summer. Players leaving for more and more money, more players being sold, and then go, but we don't change our, let's say it's 35 grand, for example, was the wage structure cap. That's what people seem to think. Would you be uncomfortable with Celtic signing someone you would know the day they arrived, he's going to cost more than what maybe Cal McGregor's on right now? I've got any issue with it. Do you?
No, I don't think so. I think if you want to advance as a club, you've always got to be looking at these things. And it's a simple thing when it comes to business. If you've got more money in the bank to invest, then naturally to progress as a business, you're going to have to invest more and reinvest. And that's the same that runs true in any walk of life, in any business. So I think, Celtic, they like to say that they're very good businessmen and they're very astute when it comes to their finances. So I think when it comes to the fact that Celtic are on course to have their largest profit margins in perhaps forever come this summer, with, as I say, that Champions League money looking more and more likely it's coming back to us, plus, these additional bonuses, if you like, that we weren't perhaps expecting. You've also got to weigh in there as well. Postecoglou's already made it clear last year that the odds are you'll probably end up possibly losing another one of our own players that could end up going for good money too. Then there's going to be a wealth of riches, I believe, at Celtic's disposal this summer. And I think that is where it piques the fans' interest, because we are going to get a much better feel for where this board is at. Are they a board that want to see Celtic progress in Europe and see how far they can push the club in that sort of, on those waters? Or are they just content with domestic domination? The answers will be given, I believe, in the summer to that question, but depending on how much they choose to back Postecoglou. I think if there's an opportunity there to bring in a marquee signing, and obviously it's not going to completely break the bank, but, fair enough, it might unsettle and ruffle up a few of the players, but that just gives them something to strive for, as well. You bring in quality, then it also can breed quality in amongst your squad, because then you've got somebody to work towards, and it gives you a chance to be training with a better standard of player for the rest of them to try and push on. And, if Celtic continue to have success, then the wage increases can still follow up on that for your likes of your, I don't just use Cal McGregor as an example, your McGregors, your Hatatis, whoever else it may be, that maybe have their nose slightly out of joint, that somebody's came in and managed to get a much higher wage packet than them. So I think it's something Celtic have to look at if they have realistic ambitions of competing at Europe. Yeah. I think the big question that most Celtic fans have, Russell, is will the board actually follow through on that? Or are they going to be looking once again, perhaps across the city rather than what's going on at our own club, and think they might have a bit of financial difficulty at the moment? Yeah. We can maybe play it safe and just keep that money, and it can just go out in dividends to the shareholders, and the club can just get minimal investment as we've done previously. And as long as we're winning things domestically, who really cares?
That'll be that's right. I think that's where the shift in attitude would be changing. But we don't want to turn it into something where it's a negative, because the summer's not here yet. But it was just when I seen that story, I felt, wow, this summer really has a lot of possibilities. Particularly when we think this weekend we're about to seal the title effectively. And then, that's the Champions League money then coming in, the season ticket, all these things. It points us in a good position. Now, we may as well, whilst we're talking about finances and things, talk about share confetti. Now, I don't kid on to be an accountant, right? I do take interest, though, in some of these aspects of the game. I think me and Steve were talking about yesterday, when it's your rivals in the league. They're your nearest rivals, if you like. And whilst I might think they're a replay thing sometimes, they did actually win a title 2 years ago. So, with that in mind, the fact their chairman's walked away or left, I know they don't do walking away, so I'm sure he was carried out or something, which would take a fair few folk. But I also wonder, is that a coincidence with just under £2 million they've had to raise from shares again? And when at some point, is it enough is enough in terms of, if there is the eyes of UEFA on this club, like we know for a fact there is, because the list is there, it's public information, are they going to be held to that? Is the list a load of nonsense, or was it just a case of desperate times call for desperate measures, and we'll take the fallout with UEFA, which will be further down the line, right now, because needs must? And whether I know Phil Mack, we'll just call him the blogger. I mean, I think he's speculating that could be actually exactly what Rangers pay out a month in wages on their first team. Is that is that a coincidence? Maybe they'll need to wait, because if they were to lose this weekend, season tickets, they put out apparently the 11th of April last year. They brought their season ticket announcement for the next season, which does seem extremely early, but if you're needing cash, that's what you would do. I mean, I wonder if what they're doing right now, and I'm sure plenty of people in the comments can maybe help us and guide us a wee bit with this conversation, because I'm not trying to act ITK on this stuff. I'm really not. But it does seem odd that they're back doing what they were kind of doing a lot in the last few years that seem to have stopped, i.e. what I'm saying is this equity share stuff and all that nonsense. I mean, if you're doing that to raise funds right now, are they not being deterred from doing that by the financial fair play sort of microscope they were under? And if they are doing it again, is it legal? Because, like I said yesterday, Steve-O, I am at once bit, twice as shy. I'm not going to sit back and take it that a rigged product is acceptable. It is not, Jonathan. You've got to play within the rules. But the difference is this time, it ain't going to be the SPFL. It's out their hands. This is with the big boys at UEFA, and I would imagine they don't really care who the club is. They can take it to task if they see fit.
Yeah, well, UEFA certainly aren't going to be overly interested in what Rangers bring to the table in a Scottish football context, in the same way that the SFA may be slightly more reluctant to take action on them when they're one of the two biggest selling points of the Scottish game. I mean, looking at Rangers' situation with the shares, it does seem a bit of an odd one. They've done these obviously a number of times, and you kind of felt, well, they were doing it more so trying to stop the 10, and that was happening fairly regular basis. And you could kind of understand why they were doing it, to try and bridge the gap that Celtic had created over that sort of decade of destruction that we had. I think now Rangers are beginning to realise that fans were buying into it, I think, at Ibrox, because there was something there to play for, in the sense there was a lot on the line, stop and 10-0 for the Rangers fans. They thought they were back on top after COVID. I think they've got a rude awakening last season with how quickly Celtic have responded to that setback. I think there is probably less interest from the fans at the moment. I think the club directors, who have given quite a lot of loans over the years, are probably wanting their money back, if I was to speculate. And I suspect that these share issues are a means to an end to start repaying a lot of these directors' loans. Because at the moment, if we were to take our biases away from it, Russell, and you are looking at investing in a football club, and you're looking at Rangers, and you're looking at that and thinking, where's my opportunity here to make money at this football club? Because it just seems to be that the money just disappears down a black hole and is never found again. So there's a reason why the people that are investing in Rangers tend to be staunch diehard blue noses, and that similar to us as well, in the sense that we've got plenty of fans that would quite happily throw money at the football club with no expectation of getting it back just to see the club, doing well. But I think there comes a point where there's so much money been put into that club that these people are going to want it back. And I think that is where these share issues are coming into effect. UEFA will take a dim view on this, I believe. I would imagine they will end up in further hot water with UEFA, if not the SFA. I don't think the SFA will take action unless they're absolutely forced to. Yeah, unless they're forced to, they won't do anything at all about it. But, with Douglas Park resigning, it does kind of feel as if there is a bit of momentum to this story. Normally, when it comes to Rangers and their finances, I try and avoid it going into too much detail because, generally speaking, we've had so many of these conversations over the years, it can get a little bit tiresome. But I think there is weight to the story.
I've said that as well.
There is weight to the story, though, this time. I think there is genuinely a little bit of weight to the story. I'm not saying they're going to go bust and it's going to be a similar situation to 2012, but I think there's certainly, some weight to the story, and there is some sort of bad news coming down the pipe at Ibrox, and I would imagine we'll find out more about it. But, Russell, I wouldn't expect it to be this week. We'll find out much about it, will we?
I think you're right, and that leads me on to my next point, because right now the perfect storm, I was saying this again with Steve yesterday, I really enjoyed the lunchtime chat with him, and we were saying, it's so funny that the perfect storm has been created for these guys, because whilst there'll be an unwillingness from the MSM, there'll be an unwillingness from the SPFL, the SFA to even look at, why are they doing that? What the hell is all this about? UEFA won't care, but it just won't be on their list of priorities right at the top. So that'll be something that's way further down the line, which I think Rangers will have been acutely aware of, hence why they did it, because they're kicking the can down the road. However, from our point of view, it'll be this as the narrative this week. Postecoglou contacted by Leicester, or whatever it is, top of the list, on the wish list of Chelsea as a contender for that job. These sort of stories, I would imagine, are the powder puff ones that they'll jump on, and yet they will not look closely at this negative one, because the last thing they want is the hiding, which I think could happen from a purely footballing perspective, by the way. I think the hiding that could come their way is because they're due one off us. We've not been at our best in the last 2 games yet. We never lost either. We won a trophy, and we got a draw there in a must-win game for them. And we weren't at our best in either, in my opinion. I think come Saturday, it's about time, everything clicks again for us in this fixture. And if it does, they've got absolutely no chance. So whilst that's all in mind from a sporting perspective, you can't help but feel they'll not, even though there's actual real stories here, that whether they're of a negative light to Rangers or not, they're factual, they're interesting, there's, as you say, there could be weight behind them, there could be some really juicy content to be discussed. I think they'll focus on going into Celtic's manager being linked with these jobs down south, and looking at obviously joining the dots that are so obvious. Like, well, the last Celtic manager to leave was to Leicester City, and things like this, really to try and derail Celtic. I think this week will be the stories, even though the focal point should be the other way around and on them.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing new on the build-up to Derby week that the media end up finding a way of putting positive spins on stories coming out of Ibrox and find anything they can to try and disrupt the flow of momentum coming out of Celtic Park. That's been that way for as long as I can remember. I think, at the moment, it must be bewildering, though, for people that can look at what's going on with both clubs at the moment and somehow think, if you work for the Daily Record, for example, and you're being told you need to find positive spins about Rangers, and find something negative to say about Celtic, you must be scratching your head if you're don't have any affiliation with either club and thinking, but wait a minute here, Rangers, there's a story there to actually go after, and it's a bit of a sad state of journalism, I always think, in Scottish football, is the sense that they don't really seem to want to do the dirty work in terms of doing actual reporting and breaking news stories to the fans, which has probably helped, the likes of the blogs over the last 10 years and now the podcast getting involved, is because people are sick to their back teeth of actually going, and reading the newspapers. Now, I did actually see a bit of Phil Mack's blog, and he was actually talking about the circulation of the newspapers was down ridiculous numbers. I mean, it's unsustainable. You know, if you want to talk about Rangers being in financial difficulty, I think the newspapers are next in line for financial difficulty across the board, because people just aren't buying them anymore because they're just not selling things that people are interested in. But you know, if we're looking at it from a Celtic standpoint, I mean, the stories are going to come out about Postecoglou. Of course they are. That's a very easy link because Brendan Rodgers, you know, went there to Leicester. Robbie Savage has already lazily done it on 5 Live over the weekend, and Chris Sutton roasted him for it at the time. I suspect Postecoglou will no doubt be getting batted those questions again, despite the fact he's already said earlier this season, and not that long ago either, just after winning the League Cup, that he was committed to the football club, you know, and had no intention of going anywhere. I would imagine Postecoglou will swat this back very swiftly when the question does come his way. But of course, they're going to look for speculation. They'll look for other things to try and bring into the equation as well. Obviously, there's a few injury issues at Celtic Park just now, so I'd expect to see that heightened in the media over the next few days. I would imagine they'll focus a lot on the possibility Hatate, for example, is likely to miss out. Abada seems to be Abada seems to be a bit doubtful as well, because it seems like he's nursing an injury. Aaron Moyes obviously missed the last game too, so I wouldn't be overly surprised if they're going to turn around and try and look at it as if Celtic have some sort of injury problems. That means they're going to have to field a weaker starting 11, which might breed hope for Rangers. But it's what they always do. They'll always go out their way to try and poke holes in Celtic and try and bum up Rangers. When it comes to these types of games, it's nothing new. It's nothing we're not expected to. And to be honest, the guy who will expect it, you know, the most now is actually Ange Postecoglou, because he's been in the job long enough, and I think he's sussed our media out probably after the first game against them what he was dealing with, and I don't think this will faze him one bit. To be honest, I'll put this to you, Russell. I think Postecoglou quite likes it this way. I think he quite likes the fact that they try and bum up Rangers, because I think it gives him even more fuel and desire to go and prove the media wrong. And I think that might just add a little bit extra bite into whatever he's trying to accomplish in his team talks in the build-up to this game this week.
People tick in different ways, and what makes you tick when it comes to sport can be all sorts. It can be absolutely no drama at all, and it could just be professionalism all the time. Sometimes people like it when, you know, other people get all the kudos and I don't. I think it suits Ange, as you say. I think it makes him tick a wee bit with it. He likes being at Celtic, who he knows is not the media
darling.
Sweethearts. Yes, and I think I think he's schooled the media too many times now for it to even be a contest. But I definitely feel that helps him a wee bit. I don't know. He would deny that, of course, but I can't help but feel when I think Ange, it makes him tick a wee bit. I think he likes it. I think I'm not going to say it tickles his balls, but, you know, it might a wee bit. That, you know, you actually still think, you know, I'm not the main man here and I don't know what's going on, and you have got some sort of insight. But looking at the team, obviously the Hatate injury rumours, we know will be, again, another thing that will take up column inches or websites and stuff as being a disaster for Celtic. If Hatate weren't, to be fair, I think it was Charlie Nicholas was saying today he's got a source that said he won't make it. How reliable that is, I mean, is anyone's guess. But if there was no Hatate, who comes in then? O'Reilly's obviously not in the best form that we've seen from him since he joined Celtic, right? We know that. He's not been in a space for the last probably 3 or 4 months where we've seen the very best of him. Iwata we've not seen enough of. It's got to be one of the two, and that's if Moy were to be fit. O'Reilly's record, though, in this fixture's pretty good. In fact, the 2 cuffings that we've had, the 2 real statement wins under Ange, the 3-0 and the 4-0, O'Reilly started both. Jakey's more likely to go for him if there were to be a position, because I think if he's got everyone fit, your midfield 3 will be Hatate, Moy, McGregor, right?
Yeah, fix itself really at the minute.
If he were to not have one of those, and it looks like potentially if it were to be Hatate, then who comes in? Is it Iwata? Is it O'Reilly? Does he shift it about and put Hacksaw maybe a wee bit further forward in the midfield 3? There is options. None of this is a disaster. This is what you have a big squad for.
We talked before the last League Cup final where we thought there would be a curveball, and the curveball turned out to be there was no curveball whatsoever. There is a curveball he could play here, and that curveball is actually somebody who scored against Rangers the last time at Celtic Park, and it's David Turnbull, who's also in the equation. I don't think he would go with him, but you know what? Again, these sort of games, they tend to throw up surprise selections, so it wouldn't overly shock me if he did go something completely out there. I mean, if you're asking me between Iwata and O'Reilly, I think it most likely is going to boil down to the two of them if we're going to pick obvious safe choices that he might go for. Normally, I would have said O'Reilly every day of the week. I think, though, recently O'Reilly has been a little bit out of form and certainly hasn't been performing to the same heights he was when he first broke into the team last year. I think when you're looking at that, and when you compare him with Iwata and what Iwata's done in the games he's played, I think he's looked fairly solid. I think he is a bit more of a defensive-minded player, though, so I don't know if that's necessarily going to suit what Ange is looking to get across in the team in this particular fixture, because I think at home against Rangers, you know, if we're looking at the games we've played against them, the 1-1 game aside, I would say, you know, we've smashed them, and we've smashed them massively in the first half because we went for the throat in those other two fixtures at Celtic Park against them. And I think that's why he might just go with O'Reilly, even though he's out of form slightly, because I think he'll like the fact O'Reilly's able to offer a bit more attacking impetus. I think it also plays into the fact that for me at the base of the midfield, McGregor offers you an awful lot more at moving that ball quickly into the attacking players than Iwata will as well. So I think, you know, in terms of an attacking intent of Celtic, then I could see why he might just go for O'Reilly. But I think it's a difficult one. I think there's definitely options there. I certainly wouldn't think it would be a disastrous decision, for example, if he was to choose Iwata over O'Reilly. And I think, you know, Judge Kearney, for example, would probably be of the mind that he should be choosing Iwata over O'Reilly, because we know Mark has been saying for the last few weeks that he doesn't think O'Reilly should be getting as many starts as he had, purely because his form hasn't been quite so good.
Yeah.
So there is that option there. And you're right, he could do something totally different and put Hacksaw into the middle. I think it's one of those games where he didn't do the curveball the last time. I just wonder if he might have something up his sleeve this time around. I certainly think he'll go for an attacking option, which is why I think I'm leaning towards him not doing Iwata. I think if it wasn't O'Reilly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was either Hacksaw improvised more into the number 10, or he plays David Turnbull and tries to see if he can actually step up in a game of this magnitude, which would be a bit of a joker card, I think, if he was to play David Turnbull, because that is a bit of a high-risk strategy. I don't think it would be overly popular with a lot of fans, because many see him as the weakest of his central midfield options. But the one thing about David Turnbull, Russell, is he does score goals quite often off the bench, and he has already got a goal in this fixture this season.
Very true. Very true. I mean, these are the headaches that you want to have as well. This is where we want to be, Jonathan, in terms of, you know, the squad depth, if you like. Now, I appreciate sometimes when we've made 4 or 5 changes, we've not looked as compelling a watch. But notwithstanding that, when we look at the potential injury, might be bollocks, who knows, of Hatate, I like all those ideas. I'm comfortable with all of the ideas that you've just put forward there. There's not one I'm going, that'd be a disaster. So with that in mind, I think this is when you start to see what the squad should be looking like at a club like Celtic when it's got its shit together. And right now, I think since Ange came in, now we're nearing the end of season 2, we are at a stage where, you know, it's very much in Ange's mould now. He's had autonomy of the actual transfer windows. I don't think last summer's window was amazing. In fact, I don't think it was particularly good. But I think in January, wow, we've definitely done really, really good business so far. And it's interesting because there's many ways to skin a cat, as I always say. And I do think that Ange will keep his cards pretty close to his chest with what his decision-making process will be for that midfield, if there is a midfielder that we're needing to replace. But with the build-up to this game as well, you obviously would have watched the game at the weekend. Celtic's actual domestic form hasn't been as good as what it has been in different stages of this season. However, sometimes when you just look at the numbers and you look at the nearly 30 shots on goal at the weekend and stuff, you go, this is us having a wee sort of ropey spell. We're doing a hell of a lot right still. The only thing I would say, though, is when it comes to seeing that amount of efforts on goal like we've seen at the weekend, and obviously it took a very late goal from Bernabei to, sort of seal the victory at 2-0, because it was 1-0 the vast majority of the game. You don't want to go down the road that we've seen in the Champions League earlier this season, where creating loads of chances, aren't taking them. There's a young lad, I think, who would be itching to come on the park were the game to play out that way. And I think there's fans ready to sing that O's chant right away and get Seven Nation Army over the PA system. He's got something about him. I think he's a live one. I think we've got a live one with him, where you're looking at a guy who's brimming with confidence. He's now getting international recognition. He looked to me like I thought it was the best I've seen him in a Celtic jersey at the weekend in his cameo role. And I think the bigger the occasion, he's going to be one of those guys who steps up for those. Bit of a maverick that way he could be. I think he's someone who will get a lot of actual minutes on the park at the weekend, albeit I don't see, unless Kyogo was to pull up with an injury, between now and the weekend, I think will still be, what's the saying? I was going to say earmarked. Is that a saying?
Earmarked is a saying, yeah.
Is it? Oh, brilliant.
Earmarked, that's a word. That's a word.
Yeah, I think for a minimum of at least 20 minutes on the pitch. And with that, he brings a completely different conundrum to what Kyogo does. Whilst Kyogo's runs are extremely unpredictable, him being in the team, first and foremost, is a predictable decision. They might find that he's a wee bit easier to contain, or so they'll think. I think O comes on it and is just do you know what I mean? We've just had about 4,000 runs by Kyogo from behind their back, from offside positions, bending runs, you know what I mean? Constantly keeping goalkeepers and defenders' minds occupied. And then you've got someone like O coming on when you're a wee bit fatigued, you're a wee bit tired, because that is what Celtic do. They wear teams down. We've seen that in the League Cup final. Rangers were knackered then. I think O's a nightmare to be coming on as well, because he brings a completely different set of skills, a completely different type of attitude. And I think when you've got defenders there, maybe blowing a wee bit, I think could be set up for him to score at whether it's a winning goal, whether it's to put gloss on the win. Either way, I just can't help but feel he will have his celebration already planned, and it being one of, I've arrived. I can see it being like that. He's definitely got those sort of traits, and it must be a headache thinking of that guy coming on when it is 71 minutes, Jonathan, and it's been Kyogo running you ragged for the first period of the game. That just sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it will be. I think that the scouting has probably came up trumps yet again when we've actually looked into this market when we knew Giakoumakis was for the off, because they've actually managed to get a player who has similarities to Giakoumakis as well. But I actually think he's a bit more athletic than Chaos was. Time will tell if he turns out to be an improvement or not, but the early signs certainly look good. You've got to remember Giakoumakis, for all of his troublesome ways in these games and the way he was able to kind of cause problems for the Rangers defence, he wasn't actually able to score in one of the derbies, which is a little bit surprising when you look back on it, because I think he certainly, the likes of Connor Goldson did not enjoy playing against Giakoumakis, and I think it'll be a very similar story when they run up against O, because O has got the same sort of levels of physicality about him. He's a proper specimen. He'll be able to ragdoll him about. If they want to have a physical battle with him, no problem. But I think he's also got a little bit more technique and a little bit more savvy, perhaps, than Giakoumakis does. And I think, that the stage is there for O, because I think we are now beginning to see him getting up to speed with Scottish football. He's had a bit of bedding in, but I think we certainly saw his best performance for me, I think, at the weekend there. So I think, there's definitely signs that it's coming good for O. And I would agree with you. I think he will get a good amount of time, regardless of how the game's going. I don't think Postecoglou, for example, will turn around and be panicking if the game was on a knife edge and he's got half an hour to go and say we're drawing one each or whatever, to then turn around and think, you know what, let's get him on the pitch and see if he can be the difference maker. I don't think he'd have any qualms whatsoever and putting him into that sort of position. And, you know, as I say, I think for O, I think he will look at this sort of game and think, yeah, this is a real opportunity for me, because he has that sort of way about him, and there's that sort of bit of his character that just stands out as if he could be a bit of a maverick at times. And I think he's got that sort of mentality where, you know, the bigger the game, the more he wants to become the star of the show. And we'll find out on Saturday if he is indeed capable of becoming the star of the show. But I think the story is written for him, absolutely.
Well, Jonathan, from one title race potentially coming to an end, tonight could be the night that yours does as well. Phil McGinley's in the building.
Hello.
He is there. Hello, Phil.
Right, guys.
How are you?
Oh, evening, Phil.
Not too bad, guys. Not too bad. How are you feeling tonight?
I think the double header for him is a disaster. I think we missed.
I'd like to point out, I just never even got told about this until about 5 minutes before we came on air. So obviously more panicking from Russell, obviously wanting to change things around a little bit at the last minute.
Nothing to do with me, mate.
I can't say it was me that's the one that's orchestrated the two rounds tonight, because we missed a week last week. We missed a week. So it's like, well, this isn't the 07-08 SPL season. It's not getting any extensions. The end date is set, and we will obviously finish it on the week of the 29th of May. Because, the last time we did play, obviously, there were 10 points left on the board. This last week, obviously, Russell was big move and so on. But guess what? Still 10 points on the board. But tonight, there are going to be 2 rounds of Sutton Death, so there'll be 8 points left. So could be a huge swing tonight. Either Russell's going to be 5 points clear, or it's going to be the status quo, or Jonathan's only going to be a point behind after tonight. So this is a huge, huge week, boys. Massive. So we are good to go. So as usual, boys, comments off.
Mine are off.
That's it.
This is like
I'll set up
pointer this week.
It's a 6-pointer. It really is. This is the fine margins tonight. I will set up all the aesthetics. You can do your wrestling style promos to each other, and to warm up the crowd. I will get.
I've got one key question. What even is the score? Because I've lost count.
13-10.
Has he got 10? That is an insult to me. That's embarrassing.
You've not won in about a month, Russell. I mean, keep up. I know you've had a house move going on, but that's embarrassing.
Well, I can't remember how many you've won. I thought it was less than that.
Oh, you're already flapping. You're already flapping over the last couple of weeks. It's all been coming back in my direction, and tonight we're going to be seeing it go even further in my direction.
13-12, do you think, by the end of tonight?
Well, Russell, I did say to you a couple of weeks ago, imagine if you dropped a 5-point lead. Imagine the embarrassment, the humbling you'll be getting if that was to happen. The Rocky Balboa story is there. But it's just a question of, will you choke? Will you let the Rocky Balboa story happen? Will you be like Apollo Creed and get a little bit too cocky and end up flat out on your arse come the end of this season?
I don't think even you think that. To be honest, I think even the game is a bogey, mate. It's over, and it's just a matter of when, not if.
And with all of that out the way, I will cue the music now.
Oh, it's all getting dramatic now.
Oh yes, so you guys can hear me okay? And I can hear yous.
Yeah, I can hear you better now, yep.
Yeah. Initially when it goes on, it's
a
moment. But let's see anyone in the comments for saying anything. No. Everything seems okay. Good stuff. Right. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, in the last round that we played, Jonathan, you won the point. So do you wish to go first or second in this round?
I will go first, please, Philip.
And the second question, would you like question A or question B? Because there are two questions tonight.
We'll go for A, why not? We'll keep it all in alphabetical order.
No worries at all. Yeah, there's 2 rounds tonight, so I've got 2 questions. Which one do you want to start? I say there's no difference really. They could be easy. Who knows? We shall find out. Okay, so first question, first round tonight. No surprise, I have taken some inspiration from a recent episode of Nostalgia, only loosely this time, only loosely. Going back to Scott Brown, I'm only taking his time at Celtic, that's all I've taken here, because it was 2007 to 2021, quite a long time he played at Celtic. Apparently we had 100 domestic cup ties when Scott Brown was at Celtic. We played 30 different teams in the Scottish Cup or League Cup. So quite simply, guys, can you name any of the teams that we played in those Scottish Cup ties or League Cup ties in Scott Brown's time as a Celtic player? 30 answers, plenty of fish in the sea here.
Yeah, this looks quite an easy one. We'll start with Rangers, please, Phil.
Of course.
Hearts. The Jam Tarts.
The
Homer and Barts.
Yep. Hearts indeed correct.
Partick Thistle. That's a nice random one for you.
Partick Thistle's correct. Yep, played them plenty of times, yes.
St Mirren.
Yes.
Brendan Rodgers famously said they were the best team he'd faced in Scotland, if you remember. In his first season, they were in the championship.
Oh my word!
Oh, it's a good dig, it's a good dig.
Oh my goodness!
I am going to say Dunfermline.
Yeah, Dunfermline is correct.
Chris Julian's debut that game, Mike.
Motherwell, of course. Yep, Motherwell is correct as well.
Hamilton.
Hamilton Academical is a wrong answer. We never played Hamilton in a cup game. We did
Why
not.
go there? Why go to Hamilton?
We did not play them in any cup games.
30 teams, mate, and you're going Hamilton Academical. Why? Hibs.
Hibernian is obviously correct, yes.
I'll say Kilmarnock.
Yeah, Kilmarnock's correct. And Russell to win this round of Sutton Death.
We will say Dundee United.
Dundee United, yes, Dundee United is correct. Yes, they are correct.
Hamilton Academical, nobody says that, mate, in the top 5 guesses.
Massive surprise. Hamilton amazingly no. For all the teams, I mean, there's 42 teams in the top leagues in Scotland, and 30 of them. So, yeah, Hamilton was one we've not played. A few of the more notable ones I'll go through. There was Inverness, obviously, played them plenty of times. Let's see, we
Ross
had
County as well.
Yeah, Ross County, Airdrie.
I think you play Pup now.
Clyde, East Kilbride. Remember that lower league one? We had to play East Kilbride in Ronnie Dyler's time. Livingston, Rafe Rovers, St Johnstone, Peterhead. Peterhead was on. Dundee was one as well. Falkirk, plenty. There was loads of answers on offer there. So the score now goes to 14-10. Is it going to be status quo, or is Russell going to be 5 points ahead after this?
8 remaining. There'll be 5 points clear with 8 remaining. Imagine.
That's what we're staring down the barrel of here. Okay.
Don't be too disappointed, Phil.
No. That's what it is, man. We'll see. Obviously, from a viewer point of view, the longer it goes and the more the competition, it would be good. But yeah, we're a precarious point now. So now, Russell, you just won the last point in Sutton Death. Do you wish to go first or second?
Well, let him go first for a wee change.
All right, okay.
I just went first.
Right, okay, mix it up. Here,
For a change, like someone nominated to go second. I think it's the first time we've done it in the series.
It is, Jalen. I mean, I ask the question every week and I get the same answer, but no, you've actually mixed it up. He's confident, Jono. He's getting cocky. Right, okay, guys. This question, I've noticed in all the rounds we do Sutton Death, the two of you seem to be a bit sketchy when it comes to current day affairs when we're guessing names. So this question,
current squads now before I even start.
Is all about current day squad, because there are 21 different goal scorers this season for Celtic in all competitions. So yeah, just name any player who's scored a goal in a competitive game for Celtic this season.
21
of them.
Is it any competition?
Competitive games. That's it.
Competitive.
So,
Okay.
yes, indeed. Yes.
Okay. I will go Kyogo.
Of course, yep.
Giacomakis.
Yeah, this is correct.
Leah Labada.
That is correct.
Jota.
Jota.
Aaron Moy, Russell's favourite.
Aaron Moy, yep, as indeed.
Callum McGregor.
Yes, indeed. Callum McGregor.
Rio Hatate.
Oh.
O is correct, yes.
David Turnbull.
David Turnbull, yes.
Alistair Johnston.
Alistair Johnston
you go.
is correct. Alistair Johnston. Okay, so...
Haksabanovic. Oh, sorry, Phil.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we're at 5 each after 5, so you're doing well here, actually. You're redeeming yourself after quite a sketchy time of it.
We just like to pretend.
No, so I'll just say, so obviously we'll have a maximum of 5 more guesses. So Haksabanovic is correct, so that makes it 6-5 just now, yep.
Greg Taylor.
Taylor, yep, 6 apiece.
Dyson Maida.
Dyson Maida, 7-6.
Alexandro Bernabe. What a peach at the weekend.
Most recent of the goal scorers, yes. So we are 7 each.
Carl Starfelt scored against Kilmarnock, I think.
Starfelt has, yes.
Stephen Welsh.
Stephen Welsh is correct, yes, on the first day of the season, the first goal of the season.
Yeah, I had Stephen Welsh as my next guess. Right. What else?
Oh my. 8 apiece.
5 still to go.
There are 5 left in the, yeah. If you go to 10 each, it means there'll be 1 answer that you don't get. That would be a first.
Trying to picture him scoring, but I'm not sure if he has or not. I'm trying to think of who else I could guess. I know he scored last season, but I'm not sure if he scored this season. I'm going to say Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah. Scored against Hearts the other week in the Scottish Cup.
Yeah. Of course. Tynecastle, you did. Is usually an answer, so we'll just say James Forrest.
Oh, he is an answer.
Yes, he is.
He scored a hat-trick against Hibs.
Left. Oh my god, it is 9 apiece. There are 3 answers left in the pool. Oh, this is a tense one. Oh. Fine margins.
Oh, I'm struggling to even think of anybody else to guess.
I know.
Oh, God.
Comments are loving it. Words like pressure coming up here. Love it. It's a tense one.
That's the word I'm thinking of.
Aye. Yeah.
I'm going to have to just take a punt. I'm going to take a punt. Actually, no, I don't think he has. Do I take a punt on that one? I don't think he has.
Go on with it.
Push it. I'll need to push you, Jonathan.
I'm going to say it, but Josip Juranovic.
Correct. Scored against Dundee United in the 9-0 victory.
Shit.
2 left. 10-9 just now to Jonathan.
Tony Ralston.
That's what I was going to guess.
I think he's wrong.
Tony Ralston
wrong as well.
Did score a fair few goals last season. He has not scored this season. The status quo remains. It remains 3 points now with 8 left on the board. You had to rescue it there, Jonathan, and you've just saved it. Hamilton Academical and Tony Ralston were the bogey answers tonight. So the 2 that were left, guys, you talked about them a wee bit tonight. Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly. And the other one, when I looked at the list, I was like, you do well remember this. Moritz Jens.
Against Ross County. Ross County, I think, as well.
But I think overall you did as a team, you've redeemed yourself with the whole, when I said at the start, you're a bit sketchy when it comes to guessing modern day answers. You've done, that's the best performance. 10-9. 10-9. We were one answer away from a Sutton Death question.
With Ralston, because I actually had written Ralston down and I scored them out because I thought of Josip Juranovic instead, so that was a bit fortunate.
Yeah, and I actually thought Juranovic was wrong and Ralston was right, because that's the two players in that position. That's exactly where I was going. Because you kind of just wander around the positions of the team, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You do. I was thinking, I don't think Ralston's played enough this season.
So we missed Jens and who else?
O'Reilly, who he's talked about tonight.
Riley's a gettable one as well. O'Reilly should have been gone.
So
that was good.
So it's 14-11, 3 points in it, and there are 8 points left to play for between now and the end of season 1 of
hanging in there.
So there we go.
14-11.
It's a yellow card, Hoops boy.
Good battle, boy.
Tense stuff.
That was tense. It's 10 past 10 and I am tense on a Tuesday night. Tense Tuesday. That was good. That was brilliant. And still 3 clear. Time's running out, Jonathan. It is a case of TikTok. It's been a brilliant chat. Is there anything you want to add to the old Celtic chat, Phil? Was there any opinion that you'd seen that you thought, actually, I was thinking a wee bit about that? Don't worry if not. It's absolutely fine.
No, I think he's covered it all pretty well tonight. I think it was all, he nailed all the points he needed to. So, no, I've got nothing else to add there, my man. All I can bring is my what's coming on Nostalgia this week. I can give you that. Because obviously we've got a rather big game this weekend that you talked about, of course. We'll be talking about it all week. So once again, Nostalgia will be themed with that fixture against Rangers. A few weeks back, in fact, it was a couple of months now, we did the old Scalpers episode. Well, it's a wee continuation of that, but this time we're going to be, with the help of the viewers, and obviously whoever else is on that night, we'll be doing our Scalpers 11. So we'll be putting a team together, but based on purely things they've done against Rangers, whether it's a great goal, a great performance, consistent performer, or just being a total antagonist, Scott Brown. But yeah, so that will be the subject on Friday night. It will be the Nostalgia Scalpers 11 we will be doing. So there's a few suggestions on the front of the picture there. Spoiler, the guy that's in the middle is definitely going to be in the 11 anyway. It's probably going to be a 10 we're going to be picking because Larsson's definitely in it. But yes, it's going to be the Scalpers 11. So it's going to be based on performance and things against them. Because we have had players before that have had a great season, but maybe were invisible against Rangers. So yeah, it's going to be it's all about that on Friday night to get you ready for the big game on Saturday.
That was brilliant. I might miss Friday though, Phil. I have bad news on that. I might be missing Friday, just so you know.
That's fine.
But apologies for that. But anyway, that was brilliant fun. That was brilliant, and I really look forward to that Nostalgia. We will be back. We're going to be back tomorrow morning.
Breakfast bar.
We're going to bring the breakfast bar. I'll be on it tomorrow from 8:30. So I better get to my bed soon. Thanks so much to everyone in the comments. Over 130 odd live, basically the whole show. So a huge thanks to each and every one of you. As always, make sure you like, share, slag my hair. That is all we need you to do. That's us out for a Tuesday ticket. Yeah, that works for me. I like it. The Tuesday ticket is well and truly done today. It has been cashed in. We will be back tomorrow morning, 8:30, myself and Johnny Logue. How I'm going to be talking about anything other than what I've spoken about the last 2 days, I'll never know. But Johnny, the mic is yours. Have a good night, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
When you've all that stuff at the start, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.